Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Austin. I'm the superintendent of Allendale School, and I'm also a member of the ESSA Planning Committee organized by the Department of Public Instruction. We left last meeting just last week and talked about the importance of sharing our progress as committee members with stakeholders around the state. As you know, this really does affect every teacher, every administrator, every family, every student in the state, and we all. Those of us that have been around for a while remember No Child Left Behind very well, and we want to make sure that we're doing right with ESSA. So this is my kind of an attempt to share where the planning committee is, particularly in the position of accountability, which I am a member of that subgroup working on the test and how it's going to be used to determine school success or accountability. So I'm just stealing from the department. Thank you very much. I'm taking their slides that they shared with us last week, and I've edited out a few, but just kind of use it as an overview for you to share. Hopefully, this can be shared administrators with administrators and administrators to your teachers. So, highlights of the new ESSA law, just if you don't know, decreases the role of federal government in K-12, puts a lot of responsibility on us, and has been said in our committees several times, this is our chance to get it right. If we don't get it right, let's Katie bar the door because the feds will come right back in and say, gave you a chance, but you messed it up. So we kind of take that uh, it's a very important step, a very important time for us to make sure we get this ESSA planning right. We have more authority as a state to make decisions and select our standards and assessments, which Superintendent Baszler and the department has been working on over the summer and this last year. We're expected to set high standards and rigorous accountability systems, which again, this is part of the process we're working on. We're in charge of enforcing those requirements eventually, whatever our new plan is. And it is giving us more flexibility. We have a lot of choices. We have a lot of opportunity to make choices, but that's because the federal government isn't making them for us, which is a good thing. But it does provide a little bit of uh, concern when you know that there's so much resting on those decisions. What the department thus far has created an ESSA website, which I would encourage you to check out, has resources of what we're doing and the meetings we have had and what's been going on. And again, encourage you to check those out. Uh, the department has been at several workshops, the fall workshop with administrators most recently, in my mind, sharing information about ESSA and ESSA planning. If you haven't seen that or met them, I would encourage you to get to one of those if the one happens in your area, or contact the office, contact Lori Matsky's office and ask them questions if you have interest. The ESSA Planning Committee was created last spring, again, which I am a member of, and there's probably a group of 50, 60 of us that are working at creating this new ESSA plan. Um, we're really kind of in the ESSA year, kind of their transition year already, and the ESSA plan, which again we're working on, should take effect July 1 of 17. Uh, However, as we're making it really is as we're making the ship, it seems like they're changing the rules on the ship because the Department of Education is coming out with continual guidance during right now. I mean, as we speak, we're planning for some to come out again in December. So I guess North Dakota's perspective is we're creating the plan, and as guidance comes out, we'll change if necessary or advocate to change their guidance or what they think. But we're not waiting for all that to be completed before we create our plan. Again, with the July 1 timeline for next year, it's just impossible to get it all done and waiting for Department of Ed at the same time. As you can see in the final bullet, the intent, and I'll show you a timeline here later, but the intent is to have our plan ready for submittal to DOE by March of 17. Superintendent Baszler did form the ESSA Planning Committee in May of last year. Again, many of us are members. We do have stakeholders from PTA, parent groups, chamber, um, students with disabilities, English language learners, regular superintendents, principals, teachers are all. We have representation on the committee, which I commend the department for. Um, in addition, the ESSA team or the larger ESSA committee has been broken down into three working subgroups on continuous improvement, standards assessment and accountability, which that's the group I am on, then teacher leader effectiveness, which are all required parts of the ESSA plan. If you look at the planning committee and again those three working groups, what I'd like to refer you to is kind of the cyclical part on the right. It the department has said many times, and I guess I'd like to share with everybody that even if we create the plan that's in by March of 17, the desire is this is a working plan, not to have one rule and then for the next 14 years we live with no child left behind. There's really no changes ever expected. This is really a living document. It's our document. It's our plan. And I'm reassured by the leadership in the department that this is something that we can work on and change and adapt as time goes on. Within the system, kind of, if you remember No Child Left Behind, some of the things that are still the same is we have to take annual student assessments, and I'll talk about those in a second. Those really haven't changed a lot. We still look at high school graduation rate. That's still important. 95% of the kids taking the test. That's still important. And the subgroups are still important as outlined there. So if you remember, you took the test and you had to report the percentage of kids or the number of kids meeting the cut score, the proficiency mark on the test in each of those subgroups. What's gone though is the AYP report. So you're not going to have the one-page report that maybe had one indicator, one subgroup that was low, and then hence you were a failing school if you didn't make it. That report is gone along with the sanctions because you were a failing school in the old system. So school choice, SES, and 10% set-asides per PD are all gone in the new ESSA plan. However, what's been added is some more subgroups that we have to be able to monitor, and those are homeless, foster care, and military. Those are required by the law. We have to build those into the new plan, so be looking for those and how we're going to be recording, who's in, which kids are in those groups and reporting data for them. The advanced, gifted, and talented is a subgroup that we've been talking about. We haven't decided to add the subgroup yet, but it is taking some of our time to look at and see if it's a worthwhile subgroup. Um, in addition to the test and kind of again, the old system with NCLB is that's all you really had is the test. We are able to look at a few new indicators, one being student growth. That's something that educators have asked for a long time. And don't just look at the proficiency line. If my kids maybe aren't making the cut score but are making huge gains, we want to take that in consideration, and that's part of the student growth. We are looking at that. That'll definitely be part of the new plan. And then we're also looking at school quality factors, another way to share with your patrons and your parents the quality of your school, again, besides just the one day, one time test result. 3 points to keep in mind as we talk about these new data sets that we're going to keep to show the quality of your school. Anything that we are going to be collecting, a required element for all schools, we must be able to disaggregate it by subgroups. So, you have to be a little particular in what you pick, but because whatever we pick has to be broken down by those subgroups and how many kids are excelling within those subgroups and in that individual category or factor. Um, we must be able to differentiate it to a scientific level, okay? And there must be evidence that whatever factor we pick actually makes a difference in student achievement. You can't just say your ability to blow a bubble or whatever. It has to, whatever we pick has to be able to improve student learning. So when you talk about school factors, two of them that we have considered, school quality factors, pardon me, is student engagement and school climate. And you can read the indicators that are the notes that we placed under each, but we really do think that these are two good school quality factors that are above and beyond the test that really will indicate the success of your school. And it will give our legislators, patrons, and parents a more well-rounded view of how well our schools are doing, again, aside from just the test. You should be aware, I guess, in follow-up to that, if we're going to do student engagement and school climate, we're going to have to come up with a mechanism to collect that data for all the subgroups that's just scientifically disaggregatable for all the groups. So be looking for that. That's one of the challenges we have for this. The other part of the ESSA plan is a dashboard. Again, in contrast to just an ESSA plan or an AYP report, that was a one-page, pretty much all about the test report. Now we're talking extensively about a dashboard, which could look something like this, very simplistically. It's not I mean, this isn't complex by any means, but shows the student learning index, which is a growth indicator for us, maybe how your kids that are EL kids are doing, your graduation rate, how it's doing, your school quality factor, like we just talked about, how well your school's doing on it, and then maybe an overall rating. Uh, and again, we've kind of pushing ourselves towards words like this or colors, not ABCs or percentages. Those are things that we've been in discussion about. Or I guess our ultimate goal would be to look something like this, a dashboard that'd be provided for all schools in the state, where again, anybody can look at. Uh, that would provide not only the test data, the smarter balance testing data, ACT testing data, maybe how your kids are doing on the access test if you have EL students, but maybe the demographics of your school, or how many dollars you spend per student, or as it says, Dibbles results. And we've even talked about making parts of this dashboard open so you as a school can pick what you want to put on there. Maybe you have something you're very proud about, so you want to be able to show that data to your patrons. Again, the benefit here is it's not an AYP one-page report that pretty much is a one-day snapshot of your kids and how well they did on the test, but something that's a little bit more comprehensive and takes in the totality of your schools. Um, Yeah, produced for all schools needs to be easy and understandable, real-time data, and we do like the idea of color. I mean, that last one is really nice as compared to the first one I showed you. Um, Again, we talked about standards already. We must adopt standards, which the department and Superintendent Baszler have been working on already. And we have ESSA reinforces that we have authority over our standards and what they're going to look like. So that will help in many areas that we've struggled with the last couple of years. We'll still have assessments. We'll still have a smarter balance assessment, or I guess assessment task force is probably working on maybe letting out RFPs for new assessments, but they will be aligned to state standards. The requirement for 3 through 8 and then once in high school still remains, and a science test still remains. So those really haven't changed at all from NCLB. We do intend to apply a growth model to our schools. Again, the idea here is that if you are a low achieving school and your kids are not making the cut score, they're not showing the proficiency that we want to see, you could show that they're showing uh, growth at or above the growth indicator for that group, or they're making greater growth than what would be expected. And that's a good thing. And we want to give schools credit for that underneath the new ESSA plan. There will be schools still identified. The good thing is it's not like AYP where every school was identified, and the goal there was every school had to be 100% proficient, and eventually we were all on some list. Here, schools will be defined into comprehensive and targeted schools. And we're not talking about all schools now. We're talking about a much smaller subset of schools. So your comprehensive schools will be the lowest performing schools based on the indicators we finally select, the bottom 5%, and then any school with a high school graduation rate of less of 67%. Your targeted schools will be schools that in a subgroup area have been showing low achievement for multiple years or multiple assessment periods, and then you could be identified as targeted, not just by the test itself. So again, that's a much smaller subgroup or subset of schools than it was with the old AYP plan. The nice thing about that, though, is targeted schools and comprehensive schools will be provided a lot more assistance through the department than they were in the past, where we were all failing schools, but there really wasn't any money. Here, there will be some allocation of money provided for these schools to help them move their school into the proficiency rating. So what's next? This is kind of our timeline. This is our where we're at. So where are we at right now? We're probably in that October, November of this year. We're still meeting as a large group. We're still meeting as subgroups. We'll continue that through November and into December. We're expecting guidance in December from DOE. Then we'll start to create a plan. Hopefully have that out for public input late December, January. That includes you to get input from the education community. And then from there, we'll use January and February and March to finalize our plan and then get that buttoned up and off to DOE for approval again in spring of 17. This is only part one of probably part two, so I'm almost out of time. The next section, I'll talk a little bit more about the accountability elements, as that's what we reported last session. So thank you.